The Galaxy Note is officially dead. Sort of. Hey guys, welcome to Retether Tech. My name is Jonathan, and the Galaxy S22 line was officially unveiled today from Samsung, including the all-new but familiar S22 Ultra. In fact, it's safe to say that really, the S Ultra line is the one that's actually dead, and instead we got a new Note phone with the S22 Ultra name on it. I know, it's kind of confusing. I mean, just look at this phone. It has a familiar flatter edge design like the Note series phone always had. It has a built-in S Pen, which the Note series always had. It's the most expensive phone that Samsung released today, and it also has the biggest display when compared to the other phones, which is something the Note series always had. I mean, if you look at it, this is a Note just without the name. So let's talk about this phone. Is it really worthy of being the new Note that Samsung Note fans wanted for the last 2 years? Well, design-wise, like I mentioned before, it resembles a Note phone. Flat edges, it has an S Pen slot built into the phone. The camera bump is a little different from last year's S21 Ultra. In fact, there's really no large camera bump on the back, and instead you have separate camera rings that protrude from the back of the phone, kind of like the iPhone. I personally don't like the design of the S22 Ultra. I thought the S21 Ultra design with the camera bump that kind of combines with the metal sides just looked way nicer in my opinion. The S22, the other two models have that same design on the back camera bump. I feel like Samsung should have kept that up with the S22 Ultra. I mean, that's just my opinion. I just prefer the camera bump on those other models. Either way, you're gonna have a large camera bump on the back. The front display is curved, but it's just slightly curved like the S21 Ultra, so it isn't a big deal. You're getting the same colors, Phantom Black, Phantom White, and you're also getting a new color in burgundy this year, as well as a green color. I would stick, of course, with the Phantom Black. That was my favorite color from last year's S21 models, and that's just what I prefer. But just looking at this phone, there's no doubt that this is a Note phone. If you were out in the streets and you saw somebody with this phone, you would think, oh, that's a new Galaxy Note phone, right? So it's great if you were a fan of the design of the Galaxy Note series, but if you prefer the design of the S series phones, well, you're not gonna get that this year with the S22 Ultra. Now, when it comes to the camera system, Samsung of course claims that this is the most advanced camera system ever in any Galaxy phone, which is probably true because that's usually what happens. The camera definitely gets better, or should get better, year after year, but I don't see a huge improvement over last year's phone, at least when it comes to the actual hardware. Maybe when it comes to software, there was some new software improvements when it came to the camera, which isn't a bad thing because last year's S21 line was a really good camera system. So if Samsung could just improve upon that with software updates or software features, I think you're gonna get a solid camera with the S22, especially with the S22 Ultra. It's gonna have 4 camera sensors on the back: a 12 megapixel ultra wide, a 108 megapixel wide angle, a 10 megapixel telephoto, and an additional 10 megapixel telephoto with 10 times optical zoom. Hardware wise, this thing is a beast. Samsung is gonna stick the best hardware into their flagship phones. There's no doubt about that. But Samsung really spoke about the improvements in software to get really better images, better video, including better night shots, better videos in low light, smoother video, better portrait shots, just an all-around better camera experience with the S22 Ultra, which is what we could expect from a new phone. The display, of course, is gonna be amazing. It's a 6.8-inch display with 120 Hz refresh rate, and they introduced a new software feature called Vision Booster, which optimizes the brightness and color contrast that really should just make a better all-around display, especially if you're in direct sunlight. You should really have better visibility with this display on the S22 Ultra. Now, I don't expect really leaps and bounds when it comes to this year's display on the S22 Ultra and last year's S21 Ultra. Last year's was really good, so I expect this year's to be slightly better. Really, that's what we're gonna see all around with this phone. This phone is just slightly better than last year's. Not a huge improvement, at least so far with what I've seen with the S22 Ultra. It's gonna have the same 5,000 milliamp hour battery as last year's S21 Ultra. Now, it does only have 8 or 12 gigabytes of RAM, which is actually less than last year's S21 Ultra, which gave you the option of 12 or 16 gigabytes of RAM. Not a huge deal, but it's kind of confusing that Samsung now reduced the memory inside of their flagship Ultra phone. You're getting the same storage configurations as last year, but Samsung is giving you the option of going up to 1 terabyte with the S22 Ultra, which is a lot for a smartphone, but if you want the most storage possible, Samsung's giving it to you. You're also going to get the latest and greatest processor, the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 processor inside, at least here in the States, and it's going to start at $1,199.99. So really, flagship design, flagship specs, and a flagship price tag. Now, is this phone worth upgrading to? Well, if you're coming from last year's S21 Ultra, I don't think so. The S21 Ultra was a great phone, and it's still a really amazing phone even today. And it looks like what the S22 Ultra is gonna offer is really just minor upgrades. So much so that really the biggest difference is the inclusion of the S Pen. That's what most people are excited about, having the S Pen inside the S22 Ultra, having an actual Note phone for the first time in 2 years. Now, if you are a huge Note fan and you need the S Pen and you want the ability to store your S Pen right inside of your device, well then yeah, this may be worth upgrading for you. But if the S Pen isn't really worth it for you, if you don't really use it, it's not a huge deal for you, I would maybe even take a look at the S21 Ultra. I prefer the design of the S21 Ultra over the S22 Ultra, and you're definitely going to be able to find it for a cheaper price tag over this year's S22 Ultra. The more I look at this phone, the S22 Ultra, the more I see the Note. Design, features, price tag, it's a Note with a different name. And it was released at the beginning of the year instead of at the end of the year like we normally would see our Note phones released. So I'm glad Samsung finally brought back the Note, sort of. It was always confusing when they would release a flagship phone like the Ultra phone, and then a few months later they would release a Note Ultra, which really was the same phone. The only difference was the S Pen support, the S Pen built inside the Note phone. So I'm glad that Samsung kind of just combined those phones and made a true flagship with all the flagship specs that you could want, S Pen support, and then they have 2 additional phones with flagship specs as well, just not as many features as that high-priced Ultra phone has. So I definitely think that the S22 Ultra is going to be an amazing phone, but if the S Pen isn't really a deal breaker for you, if you really don't need the S Pen, I would definitely take a look at the S21 Ultra, which you could probably find for a lot less. But what do you guys think? Are you excited with this change that Samsung made? Do you wish they would have kept the non-Note-ish S Ultra line and just released a separate Note phone just by itself? Let me know with a comment down below. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more videos just like this one on tech news, reviews, and opinions, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of our new videos, and I'll see you on the next one.